Okay, so this is your homeostatic feedback loop for blood pressure. Um, and I want you to go over that. Keep in mind when you change body positions, that's going to affect blood pressure. Um, and when you're anxious, that's going to affect blood pressure. Or when you're meditating or deep breathing, that's going to affect blood pressure as well. So you should go through different scenarios and make sure you understand how this works. Okay, so factors that influence mean arterial blood pressure. Mean arterial blood pressure is dependent on cardiac output, right, which is dependent on heart rate and stroke volume, um, and then resistance of the system to blood flow. So that's going to depend on the diameter of the arterioles, diameter of the veins, right? But another thing that we need to think about is blood volume. So blood volume is actually regulated at the kidneys. So if we have a lot of blood, or if we have a higher blood volume, that's going to increase mean arterial blood pressure. If we have a lower blood volume, let's say we're dehydrated, MAP is going to be lower. Blood pressure regulation. So blood volume is regulated by aldosterone when blood pressure is low, and atrial natriuretic peptide or brain natriuretic peptide when blood pressure is high. They are both released by the atria, but one was categorized in the atria and the other one was found in the brain. And so they originally thought that it was released by the brain. So when you think of blood volume is regulated by aldosterone when blood volumes or blood pressure is low. And when blood pressure is high, it's regulated by ANP and BNP. Blood osmolarity, on the other hand, blood osmolarity or particle concentration is regulated by antidiuretic hormone. Here's a feedback loop. So I want you to know this generally. We're going to get into this in more depth when we get into urinary system. So let's look at the Renin-Angiotensin-Aldosterone System, or RAS for short. Blood pressure drops, the kidney senses it, it releases renin into the bloodstream. Renin is going to convert angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 is going to go to the lungs, where it hits angiotensin converting enzyme, or ACE for short. That's going to activate it into angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2 is going to cause thirst. It's a really potent vasoconstrictor, so it's going to constrict systemic blood vessels, and it's going to go to the adrenal gland, where the adrenal gland is going to release aldosterone, and aldosterone is going to go to the kidney. It's actually going to go to the distal convoluted tubule. You don't have to know that yet, but it's going to go to the kidney and cause you to pull in sodium, and water is going to follow it. So aldosterone works by reabsorbing sodium, and then water follows it. Hence, you get a rise in blood pressure. That's why they say when you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated because you've already started going through this pathway. This is secondary to your baroreceptor reflex. So if blood pressure drops, your baroreceptor reflex is going to kick in and try to regulate it. So that's nervous system. If that doesn't work, then your hormones are going to kick in. So your renin is going to be released, and that's going to trigger angiotensin 2 ultimately in aldosterone, and that should cause blood pressure to rise. When you have high blood volume, what happens? The atria stretch a lot. So if you look at the heart, the atria stretch a lot. They release ANP and BNP, and that is going to shut down renin, and that is going to cause vasodilation. And ultimately, you're going to excrete urine out, so you're going to pee whatever's excess. That's going to drop blood volume, and blood pressure will drop. Antidiuretic hormone, on the other hand, regulates blood particle concentration. So normally your blood particle concentration is 0.9%, right, or 310 milliosmoles. When you're dehydrated, you've lost water, so your particle concentration is higher. This is regulated by the hypothalamus, so look up osmoreceptor reflex if you're looking in literature or online. The hypothalamus, or the sun region of the hypothalamus, senses this high particle concentration in the blood, and it has a direct link or nervous system link to your posterior pituitary. The posterior pituitary is going to dump antidiuretic hormone into the blood, it's going to go to the collecting duct of the kidney and cause you to reabsorb water, right? So if particle concentration is high in the plasma, if it's higher than 0.9%, you're going to want to hold on to water. So antidiuretic hormone, an antidiuretic, well, diuretic makes you urinate more, right? Antidiuretic makes you urinate less. So if you're not urinating it out, or if you're not peeing it out, what are you doing? You're actually holding on to it. So you're holding on to the water into the bloodstream. So if you look on the right-hand side, this is high sodium concentration in the plasma or high osmolarity. Let's say you eat, I don't know, a bag of potato chips, or let's say, you're out exercising in 100-degree weather. That's going to cause you to have more particles in your bloodstream. The osmoreceptors receptors in your hypothalamus are going to sense that. They're going to send a signal via nerve axon to the posterior pituitary. Posterior pituitary is going to release antidiuretic hormone into the bloodstream. That's going to go to the collecting duct of the kidneys and cause you to reabsorb water. If you're reabsorbing the water, you're not kicking it out. You're reabsorbing it where? You're reabsorbing it into the bloodstream. Because you're reabsorbing it into the bloodstream, you're not peeing it out, so urine volume drops. Plasma volume is going to increase, and because you're adding water to the plasma, the osmolarity actually drops. So osmolarity is going to be around 300 milliosmoles, or 0.9%. So regulation of blood pressure. If we look at the left hand of the slide, this is normal blood pressure and volume. If your homeostasis is disturbed, whether there's trauma, etc., that is going to your body is going to try to regulate it at the local level. So you're going to increase, the diameter of the arterioles, or decrease the diameter of the arterioles. If that doesn't work, then if you look at the top, the blue line or the blue arrow, you are going to go through your baroreceptor reflex, and that should work. If baroreceptor reflex doesn't work, which is nervous system regulation, then if you look at the yellow line, you're going to involve the endocrine system. And with the endocrine system, is it going to be aldosterone or antidiuretic hormone? So if it's a drop in blood volume, it's going to be aldosterone. Drop in blood volume triggers aldosterone to be released. When aldosterone is released, that causes you to pull in sodium, and water is going to follow that sodium, right? Sodium actually acts, because it's a particle and it's moving into the bloodstream, water is going to follow that particle concentration gradient. Okay, this concludes my lecture. Good job, you guys. Practice drawing out everything.